Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today we have with us Dr. Koenig. You probably have heard about him, some of his books that he's written. He's also been in many different media outlets. But he is currently serving as a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences and an associate professor of medicine at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. And he is the editor-in-chief for the International Journal of Psychiatry and Medicine. So, Dr. Koenig, thank you so much for being with us today, my friend.
Thank you for inviting me, Eddie. It's sure a pleasure to be on your show here.
Well, I've just got to say, I didn't finish reading this last night, the Handbook of Religion and Health. It's just a little bit more than I could do in 2 or 3 hours. But you've been doing this for quite a while. This is the 3rd edition of the Handbook of Religion and Health. So I'm going to just say to our listeners, this is the man, when it comes to our faith and how it impacts our health. And so I thank you for taking the time to invest your life in this scientific endeavor and the way it helps so many people with their faith, but also with their health. So thank you for that, my friend.
Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate those kind words.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I wanted us to talk today about human flourishing, which I know you and some others have done a lot of investigating in. And let's just start by focusing a little bit about what is it that people do focus, or we might even say, what are some things they put their faith in? Because even when we don't put our faith in God, we're all putting our faith in something. So what are some of those things we put our faith in?
Yeah, so you're right. If we don't put our faith in God, there will be some other gods in our life that we serve. And that's usually ourselves. Usually it's ourselves. And then maybe it might be our family members, a child, or maybe a spouse that becomes God in the person's life, or their work. Work can also become, something that displaces God from their priority list.
So someone's listening, they're saying work is a good thing and children are a good thing. And you're saying that they could become a God, but really we can know if they become a God in our lives, can't we? How can we discern when we've put our faith in something other than God?
Well, we've got it inside of us. It's built inside of us. It's our emotions. Mm-hmm. Whenever we have anything that takes God's place as God in our lives, things just don't work out. We start experiencing, distress because the God in our lives is not God. It's typically a human being that will fail us, or it's work that doesn't always go the way we want it to go, and inevitably it will fail us because it wasn't meant to be God in our life. Only God was meant to be God.
Oh, that's true. That's so good. And you've written a lot about addictions, and you've done a lot of research and a lot of work in that area. Tell me a little bit about like attachments and addictions and how they play a role in all of this.
Yeah, when a person becomes addicted to a substance, and the most common substances these days are caffeine, alcohol, and, smoking cigarettes, nicotine. Those are the most common drugs that people abuse, and they become addicted to them. Their brains actually become, it's like the brain requires the substance in order to operate correctly. Mm. And in fact, addiction has also been called enslavement, where the person literally becomes enslaved to the drug or to the substance. Initially, it gives us good feelings. It generates dopamine in the dopamine-rich centers of the brain. But our brain gets accommodated to those substances so that it takes more and more of the substance to achieve the desired effect. And consequently, what happens is our brains become used to the substance, so that we get less and less return from the substance, and it ends up literally leaving us requiring the substance and getting no joy or pleasure out of it. It's like now you're just trying to avoid pain, the pain of withdrawal. So, that part of the brain that gets stimulated by these substances was designed for God. Those dopamine areas of the brainstem, the reward centers, they were designed for God to stimulate those centers as we experience the Holy Spirit in our lives, not some other substance that's going to take God's place. So that's just the way we're made.
It's the way we're made. And so when we do put our faith in God, what are some things that leads to? It leads to flourishing, doesn't it?
Well, it leads to wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
Wholeness. People are always searching for something to become complete. And it's really faith in God is the only thing that makes us complete, makes us whole. WHOLE. So it does result in flourishing, given our genetic makeup and our developmental circumstances as a child and things we don't have any control over. Everything else being equal, religious involvement, faith in God results in well-being, in life satisfaction, in happiness. It results in greater purpose and meaning in life. It enhances a person's mental and physical health. It improves our social relationships. It even enhances our material and financial stability because it helps us be better workers on the job and allows us to, care for other colleagues on the job, which makes the job more enjoyable. And so it's just across the board. Every aspect of human flourishing is enhanced by having a strong religious faith that is then acted out in religious beliefs and behaviors and the way we treat others and the way, we live our lives.
So some folks in the book of James talks a bit about this, like you can have faith, but it also points at action. I know you've done a lot of research on church attendance and engagement in religious activities. And so, why is being part of a religious community or a church, why is that so important? Can't I just believe certain things?
Well, the scriptures encourage us to get together with one another. And even introverts like myself, the reason I go to church isn't for socialization. It's, because of my relationship with God. And he says to mingle with others and meet with others and worship him with other people. So it just works out. And even the research shows this, without any even unbiased investigators, nothing to do with our group at all, show these relationships, that it's the combination of attending religious services, engagement in private religious activities, and having a strong intrinsic attachment to God, that those all together have the greatest effects on health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a combination of those things. We can't just be religious on our own. It doesn't work because we're human. We are social beings. Again, God created us that way. We need to engage with others.
And you mentioned it's people, all kinds of people have looked at this, and that's really what this is about. The handbook of religion and health. Some of these, people weren't, probably most of these people weren't believers. And so you can look and you can see there's a lot of data out there to show participating in these activities really matters. And there's good religion or good research also to indicate that private activities are a big deal, like Bible reading and a quiet time. Unpack that a little bit for us. Why does that matter so much?
Well, because the private activities are really what kind of count in many respects, because they develop our relationship with God, which is the driving force for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're, we really need to develop that attachment to God, and that's done by reading scriptures where God speaks to us and in praying. and praying for others. All of that connects us with God in a deeper way that then helps us perform better in public when we need to. If you're a pastor, you're going to give a stronger sermon. The Holy Spirit will be with you more strongly if you've spent that time in your prayer closet, strengthening that relationship with God. And when bad things happen out of the ordinary, that connection with God will be there if it's nourished and maintained within the prayer closet and within your private religious activity.
And so it's a combination really of that group religious activity. You talk about the book of Hebrews, talk about don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. You're talking about, the Lord, Jesus said to take time, be in your prayer closet, so that private time. And that really leads us to how a person can flourish in life. So share with us a little bit about human flourishing and kind of the model for that.
Yeah, Eddie, the model for human flourishing was really developed by Tyler Vanderweel at Harvard. And he's in the School of Public Health up there, and he has a center there in the School of Public Health that focuses on human flourishing. And he's defined it as a common doing well in these 6 different areas. Now, I hope I can remember all 6, but I'm going to give it a try here. It's life satisfaction and well-being. It's meaning and purpose in life. It's moral values and principles and character. It's social relationships. It's mental and physical health. And then it's financial and material stability. And so those are the 6 dimensions of human flourishing that he has. He wanted to identify those areas of life that would be indicators of flourishing regardless of the person's religious beliefs, including those who are not religious or of different religions other than Christianity. He wanted this to apply to everybody. And that's why he divided that up into those 6 dimensions. Now, he also mentions in the article that many people of faith might include the spiritual life as something that would be a component of human flourishing. So he says that those 6 dimensions are not the only dimensions. But when he does talk about religious involvement, when he discusses the pathways that lead to human flourishing. And so those include family, education, work, occupation, and religious community involvement. So those are the 4 pathways that he discusses in that article in the Proceedings for the National Academy of Sciences. Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which is like the world's top science journal.
Absolutely.
And so he's got all that in there in that one article published in 2017.
And so that's clearly, for our listeners, that's a peer-reviewed article. That's the top of the top. We should point out he's the second author here of the Handbook of Religion and Health with You. And so I assume there's research to back up the model for flourishing.
Yeah, there's a lot of research. He discusses some of it in that article, but we have an entire chapter on human flourishing and like public health. And so that's in the Handbook of Religion and Health. We really dig down into that research that shows these connections, especially between religion, religious involvement, and all of these 6 dimensions of human flourishing. So that's all in the handbook. And then we talk about the policy implications, for the US and for other countries in terms of policy decisions that need to be made to help to support religious communities rather than to take away, what they have to offer. And they're offering an awful lot for the population in terms of maintaining the health of the population and helping people with addictions and providing volunteer services. They are billions and billions of dollars religious organizations contribute to the services that they offer.
So somebody drives by and there's a prime piece of property there in town. And they're like, oh, they have tax exempt status and that's not right. That's not fair. But what they really should think, hey, that's a hospital it's a free hospital, or this community would be so much different without that church in the midst of it.
So true, Eddie, so true.
So really, that's kind of been for the last few decades, that we'll say, a lot of the focus of the research you put out, the value of chaplains, and how our faith just really does help us to have better physical and emotional health. And I just appreciate you and applaud you for investing so much of your energy, so much of your life into this work. It's really been a great benefit to so many of us. So thank you for doing that, Dr. Koenig.
Well, thank you for all the kind words you said, and I feel really blessed to have had the doors opened for me. And it's not me, it's clearly the doors have been opened, and I'm just very, very blessed and fortunate.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today, my friend. We appreciate you giving us your time.
Glad to talk to you, Eddie. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. And it's good to see all of you, our listeners today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Maybe you know someone that would benefit from this podcast. Just take it and share it on social media. Remember, every little thing we do, it really does matter. It really does help. We truly are better when we work together. Thank you for joining us today.